as we actually looked and scanned all of the different subsectors within cybersecurity, one really stood out, which is cyber risk quantification, as the top of mind must-have solution or need for buyers and boards, CEOs and boards. And I'm super excited to announce and introduce you to the founder who's making this whole thing happen. He's created this category. He's now already signed up more than 50 of Fortune 500 companies, and he's just an amazing visionary in the space. And I'm excited to announce Avataar's investment into Safe. So welcome, Saket. Welcome on board.
It's been a blast working with you guys over the last few months in understanding your thesis of how you see the market evolving and seeing how closely related it is to what we've been thinking for so many years. Securing technology is no longer about technology, it's about yourself, your enterprises, your businesses, and more broadly, your life. And that is the reason why we started by looking at how do you manage cybersecurity risk better. And as they say, you can't manage what you cannot measure. More than 15% of the global cyber insurance market is underwritten based on Safe.
Hi, I'm Nishant, one of the founding partners of Avataar Ventures. We're a B2B growth stage fund with about 800 million under management. Within B2B, we play two big strategies. One is the global technology businesses, such as the one we'll introduce you to right now. And the second, equally important, is B2B2C models for India. Now, when we look at B2B, we actually have a very thesis-driven approach. And so, cybersecurity has been an area of interest to us for a long time. We've been tracking to see when do we get to the inflection point, because as growth stage investors, we always look for that. So inflection point normally comes in the form of high demand, maybe short supply, and great economics. So when you think about why we feel now cybersecurity is at that inflection point, on the buyer side, the demand, whether it's driven through regulations, whether it's driven through digital overload in the enterprise with all sorts of signals coming about, and the risk premiums going up, there's huge demand and pressure on CEOs and boards to actually buy and adopt security solutions. At the same time, on the supply side, there's a shortage of supply. BCG estimates about 3 to 5 million of shortage of cybersecurity professionals. So hence, even more need for automation to come in using tools. And then the economics is, obviously very telling when you think about cyber risk premiums increasing for average of medium of 50% over the past 5 years, and in some cases in regulatory duties as high as 100%. So this is why we looked at cybersecurity being an inflection point. As we actually looked and scanned all of the different subsectors within cybersecurity, one really stood out, which is cyber risk quantification, as the top of mind must-have solution or need for buyers and boards, CEOs and boards. And I'm super excited to announce and introduce you to the founder who's making this whole thing happen. He's created this category. He's now already signed up more than 50 of Fortune 500 companies, and he's just an amazing visionary in the space. And I'm excited to announce Avataar's investment into Safe. So welcome, Saket. Welcome on board. So Saket, tell us a little bit about the journey for you, and what problem are you solving for CISOs and CEOs and boards?
So firstly, Nishant, it's been a blast working with you guys over the last few months in understanding your thesis of how you see the market evolving and seeing how closely related it is to what we've been thinking for so many years. And just the partnership of what we think can be a very, very consequential, a very, very large cybersecurity company, which can have a very big and profound impact with enterprises, especially in today's day and age, as you pointed out, all the reasons. And if you just turbocharge all of that with AI, with all these big companies saying that we are on the path to create AGI, that'll be a very different world that we'll be living in. And at that time, securing technology is no longer about technology, it's about yourself, your enterprises, your businesses, and more broadly, your life. Right. And that is the reason why we started by looking at how do you manage cybersecurity risk better. And as they say, you can't manage what you cannot measure. Yeah. So that is the reason the foundation of what we built was all about, let's start with quantification and understanding of risks. And the moment you can do that, that is when you go ahead and bring that into action of doing what is the best possible next step. It's almost like game theory with given resources, because no company has infinite resources.
So to that point, Saket, what makes SAFE solution unique for quantification?
So quantification, firstly, what we always came through, because quantification is not a new problem area. It's been done from the beginning of ages in every aspect, including cybersecurity.
And Excel, basically.
Totally. So most of the market is actually today consultants doing this manually with questions in a not so, I would say, modern way.
Right.
And that's the reason the first big differentiation that we brought in was automation. We said, look, when you talk about your security posture, when you talk about your health, you want to rely on a Fitbit or a Whoop. You're taking real telemetry, and that tells you how healthy you are. That's where the health is going. How can cyber health be very different? And that's exactly where we started with automation. Today we have over 130 API integrations. When we go to a Fortune 500 company, we integrate with the existing security stack of the company so that we can power it with what you already know. From there, it can be a lot of data. Then comes open standards. Our investment in going and acquiring the company which founded the FAIR Institute, which is the de facto standard in building these quantification models for over a decade.
Standard, by standard, you mean the actuarial models that are underwriting the risk, right?
The models which we are using to quantify.
To quantify, that's what I meant.
Totally. The underwriting of risk with the actuarial model that happens through insurance is something that FAIR is inspired by. So FAIR is created along with cyber insurance companies, which actually do underwriting of risk all the time. And today, again, very happy to tell your viewers that more than 15% of the global cyber insurance market is underwritten based on SAFE. It is on the SAFE platform, which is out there. Yeah. So out of the total $12 billion market, we have around $1.8 billion of total premiums that are underwritten on our platform.
That's
so
amazing.
All of that stuff with automation, with open standard, like a FAIR standard, which is today used by 50% of Fortune 500 companies, more than 17,000 practitioners use that. We use that in our platform to power on how do you use this data to come out with the risk, and then top it up with agentic AI in terms of consumption, so that you don't have to go and click 25 times to find your answers. Right. You go click on an app and ask a question in English, and it gives you the answer.
So it's no wonder then, that you're growing, if I may, share with the audience, 130% clip CAGR over the last 5 years. Really inspiring to see, an Indian company dominating on the global stage. Take us through maybe one of your client journeys and, why are clients so drawn and excited about SAFE and willing to pay those multi-million-dollar deals?
If you think about the cybersecurity market today, Nishant, that's $200 billion growing at 15% year over year. It has more than 4,000 funded startups which are out there. Now, a company, and since you mentioned Fortune 500, a typical Fortune 500 company will have anywhere between 30 to 50 cybersecurity products on an average. Sometimes can be much more, sometimes less, but 30 to 50 is a good ballpark. Now, everybody has a lot of tools. And what does each tool do? They reduce risk. But there's one fundamental question that nobody's answering. How much risk does every tool reduce? And that is exactly what we do. The so what? When you invest or overinvest or underinvest in any part of your security program, what is the ROI of that? And that actually enables better decision making. So I'm going to say something which generally is considered controversial. We actually don't care about quantification, because quantification is a means for better decision making. Sure. And that is what we are after. Can we enable data-backed, open standards-based actual decision-making, which is giving you the maximum bang for the buck for the investments you're making to cybersecurity, not to slow you down, but actually accelerate your digital transformation and the AI adoption of your company.
So is there an example of, company X went from, X to Y in terms of risk reduction thanks to the decisions enabled by your platform?
Well, I will take it one step further. Let's take an example of a very good company, super in the news today. Their CEO just became the CEO of OpenAI. It's the CEO of Instacart. Instacart is a live customer of ours. They are the number one grocery. Think of it like the Zepto of US,
absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
So Instacart is a live customer of ours. Using our automation, agentic AI-driven stuff, they can now onboard their third-party vendors at a time which has been slashed down by more than 50%.
Wow.
So with the same amount of team, the same people, they can now onboard 2 times faster 2 times, not just 2 times more vendors, but even faster. And by the way, that's the total list of vendors. They could do even more. Now, what does that mean? A company which is super dynamic like an Instacart, which has like hundreds of teams bringing in new AI tools every day, instead of getting a delay in trying to understand what the risk of the new vendor which is coming in, that happens much faster and based on the quantified view of risk that they're able to see. Because in the old way, without us, they were getting random scores of A, B, C, D, E, F or 300 to 500, which doesn't really mean a lot. Right. Here, they can say, okay, here are my list of 500 vendors. Which vendor has the highest? Exactly. So it's a leaderboard of risks. So you can say for data exfiltration, out of 500 vendors, I'm giving my data of some shape or form to say 50 vendors. And for these 50 vendors, this vendor is the highest risk of data exfiltration. So therefore, this is my cutoff. And if they go beyond this, I don't want to work with that vendor. So we've accelerated business for that company. Not just reduction of risk is a given, but that leads to faster and more business, more AI, more cloud. And that is the promise why customers are so excited about us.
No, massive. And, I was reading this stat from Gartner that greater than 50% of professionals, like the CEOs and the boards, are now going to have by 2026, so that's around the corner, some percentage of their compensation tied to cyber risk management, right?
Yeah.
So you're actually enabling all of that. So super inspiring. Maybe one last question, obviously I know, you have done such amazing stuff. The numbers speak for themselves. The passion that you bring, people obviously, look up to you from a cyber standpoint as a startup emerging from India. You had choices. Why Avataar?
Nishant, the first piece is, Avataar is great, but you're amazing. For me, I've always been about, the fund's important, of course, and make no mistake that, startups don't exist, high growth startups don't exist if they don't get the funding. So of course the funding is important and therefore the fund is important. But a fund is just the umbrella. It's actually the person who you work with out there that really makes the biggest difference. And when we looked at Avataar, and of course we've been friends for a few years now, I've known your journey. I had heard about you, Nishant, even before we met, because obviously in the Indian circles of, enterprises, and actually because, you were obviously at the helm of the first startup which actually went public at NASDAQ. You saw that. At the same time, you've been an operator. I saw firsthand, because I've had a lot of investors, as you know, and like the investors which have added the highest amount of value for us, for me, has been investors who've been operators, because they actually can go deep into the problem statement and then talk about, okay, what's the root cause of an issue and try to actually solve that. Again, I'm not discounting somebody who would look at an Excel sheet and actually look at trends, because of course trends speak and there is a lot of merit on the other side also. But as you know, I'm a hands-on CEO. I love getting my hands dirty, going deep down in. So I think that's the biggest area where not only you, Nishant, I think across the firm, you've got a bunch of operators. And then the more we spoke about things and we deep dive into go-to-market, on a product, on a strategy, what do we think about the world 5 years, 7 years down the lane? All of that resonated extremely well. And that's the reason why, we were very honored that you would accept to invest into us. And we were obviously excited to get you on the cap table to lead the round and meaningfully become your number one potential investor in the near future.
Amen to that. No, thanks goes out to our entire team. I think we live this operating VC. That's one of our core principles. But really grateful for your support and looking forward to an amazing future to come.
Thank you, Nishant.
Cheers.
Cheers.